Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's me, your boy Chris, Wonder Kid Tino, and this is episode talks number 8, and I'm going to be talking about discipline and consistency. So before I start, I just want to give a warning disclaimer. This is just my opinion. I'm not claiming to be the greatest animator or the greatest artist in the world. I'm not saying that this advice is the end all be all for your success. This is just my opinion. I'm just sharing my experience with you. If you don't like it, that's okay. Yeah. So I just want to put that out there. Man, discipline and consistency is very important, man. Especially as like an animator or content creator using YouTube for animation. It's a very important thing. Discipline and consistency are basically the same thing. They're like, I like to look at them as twins, basically. And especially in today's time, man, with discipline and consistency, with people, people are not really who they are or what they portray to be. I look at discipline as something that is a lost art, man, especially in social media where, people use discipline in a sense of validation. What I mean by that is, a lot of people, they like to they like to document, their hard work in the sense of, trying to prove to others of how disciplined and consistency that they are. And really, that's not really the case. It's not really who they are. They're just doing it for views, likes. They're looking for validation. Like I said, they're looking for validation again to portray something that they're really not. And that's how, discipline is viewed today. However, I do have some advice on how to stay disciplined and consistency without, the validation. Because really, you don't really need to have validation to be disciplined and consistent. So, step number 1, especially when it comes down to it with animation and, arts itself, really animation when it's involving, characters and other characters. My advice to you guys, whether you're starting out or you're just like me, you're kind of, you've been doing it for a hot minute, and you're, slowly growing. My advice for both of you guys, for both of you guys groups, do not create a multi-universe. Do not do it. I don't care how much inspired you are by Dragon Ball Z, by Marvel Universe, the DC Universe, all these different universe. Please, I beg you, do not do a multi-universe, man. I'm not gonna, say his name on here because he is a YouTube creator himself, but he was one of the guys that inspired me to branch outside of animation and do more commentary. He's more of like a critic. He's more of like an animation critic. I kind of look at outside of him creating his own particular thing, even though he has created his own thing. To me, he's more of like an animation, critic or whatever. But he has a video, a while back where, he's creating like I said, he creates his own comics, and he created like a whole universe with 100 characters. And he was just saying, like, if I ever do this again, I'd rather pay somebody to do it. And that's the whole point exactly. Once you create a universe with all of these different characters, all of these different main characters, I should say, you're going to get lost, man. Especially starting out, whether you're, a beginner or whether, again, where you're like me, you're still going to do the majority of the work by yourself. And, when you're creating like universes where, like, again, there's multiple main characters, multiple main storylines, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get lost. You don't know what to focus on. You're going to be all over the place. And you're going to quit easily because you're going to quit easily because now you got to manage all these fictional people, and you got to manage different personalities, and you may favor one character. It's just going to just be too much for you to bear. So my advice, especially what I did when I first started to do bubblegum, my advice to myself was, don't get overly excited with creating her, because once you get excited, you're going to start to create other characters right off the back. But what I did was that even though there's other characters involved, it still revolves around one character. So what I'm saying is, just focus on one character and evolve the world around that one character. It just makes you introducing and dealing with other characters a lot more easier, because the whole, purpose and the whole reason behind this character is revolved around this particular character. So, for an example, with Bubblegum, you have the super villain Yante. Not only that he's, the villain, quote unquote, the opposite of Bubblegum, in the story, Bubblegum is a superhero. He tries to rob the bank, and he, saves the day. And then I'm able to dive in a little bit more into his character that still revolves around Bubblegum. So Bubblegum's actions towards the villain, as far as her beating him up, her actions towards him affects him, but it still revolves around her, because without her being involved, basically, I'm not saying that Yante doesn't have a purpose per se, but there would be no reason for me to basically talk about Yante in a sense with Bubblegum, unless he's his own separate character with his own story world. But even if he does have his own story and world, before I even get to that, it has to revolve around my main character, Bubblegum. That's how you develop, more consistency and more storytelling with just that one particular character that you are passionate about, that you fall in love with, and all those things. So, in simple terms, just focus on one character and then just develop the story around that character that involves her or him interacting with other characters, but it doesn't lose sight of that main character. So step number 2 that I have for you guys is be practical. Be practical. What I mean by that is, as I got older, I won't say that, me dreaming big in the past, because, I started out as an artist, as a painter, as a visual artist back in 2014. And, fast forward all the way up until now, I didn't transition into animation. And I still have goals, but what I've learned as I gotten older and I've gotten more wiser is that, like I said, there's nothing wrong with dreaming big as long as you're practical with it. Because if you're not practical while you're dreaming big, what's going to happen is those dreams are going to remain dreams, like what Shia LaBeouf said. The way to make your dreams become reality is to be practical with them, you may have like a big dream of whatever the case may be, right? But that's probably not going to take you until like 15, 20, 25, or even 30 years to even get there, right? But if you're practical and you're thinking, you're going to focus on, okay, yeah, that's my goal here or whatever, and that's probably going to have its own time schedule. But while I'm in the present, I'm going to create for today, And creating for today is that if you have like a plan or if you have like an idea, that you just want to just, get out there, with your character. It could just be something simple. When I first started out doing Bubblegum, I didn't have storylines, with her at all. With my first two animations that I did, for one thing, I was still learning, how to become a better animator, because I had went back to school and I was learning about digital media production. So I was trying to learn how to input sound, how to, uh, cut, film, and all these things I was learning from a production standpoint. So I didn't have a storyline. I just had just ideas on, the thoughts of who she was. And so my first two was that, early on I understood that Bubblegum, she was going to be more of an aggressive character. Outside of, at the time I was working on Bubble Boy, and Bubble Boy was more of like a, like a goody two shoes kind of boy. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, if in my previous video, Bubblegum was already established, with my, good friend Giannis. So if my character, I already knew Bubblegum was going to be opposite. So what I did was I just created like very simple animation. So the first one I did, Bubblegum, she's I have like a part where, she's, slapping her fist against her hand like she's getting ready to beat you up, and Bubble Boy pulls her to the side. Then my second one, she's just throwing punches. You know what I'm saying? Just those simple things, that's the practicality of you taking those steps into, making your dreams become, making your dreams become a reality. So if you have a dream of having your own TV show, well, create something today where, you could, create like an animation that I did that is just simple movements of your character. Those are the first steps of making that dream to become a reality, because you're able to watch it on TV through YouTube. You know what I'm saying? So be practical. Step number 3, and this correlates with being practical. Like my mom always, tells me, write the vision, make it plain. So if you have a vision of just what you want to do in life, write it down, and write the steps accordingly. And those steps are not necessarily, to get you right then and there in a particular time, but it's just steps on to be active, whether it's, yearly steps or monthly steps, whatever the case may be. For me, what works for me is, just writing out a goals list for, the year. Just writing out steps for, a year and just working on it. And as you work on it, your ideas begin to sharpen. And, from experience, once that year is over, once you complete everything, you're able to go back and look at the list and see that like, oh, well, I remember when I wrote down this, but it actually turned into this. That's the beauty, of writing things down, and, completing them, because, out of sight, out of mind. But if it's in your sight, then you're always reminded. And another thing too to do, especially as for me, as being on YouTube now, is to create a routine. Now, with some people, they have like certain days of when they want to make videos and do uploads and all those things, which is cool. What works for me is that, I have a cycle here. So, my first cycle with my channel, because my channel is about animation first. So I got to make sure that, my animation videos are more than, like my episode talks videos that I'm doing now. My animation videos are more than my Q&A videos, that I do now. So I come up with my list of animations that I do, whether it's Bubblegum or whether it's Wonder Kid Tino, which is me as a cartoon character. I make sure to plan those out first. Then I would do I would do like a Q&A. I would do like an episode talks, And with my animation videos, I would start off with the long form videos, right? Start with the long form videos. Um, Start with the long form videos, then split that time, make use the long form videos and make shorts out of that, or create original shorts. They're all related to animations. Once that's done, then I would do Q&A. Then I would do the episode talks, and I will repeat the cycle. So that way, for me, there's always some form of content that I'm able to make, because even though my channel is animation first, with my animation with Bubblegum and Wonder Tino, animation is very tedious. It's a very tedious job. It's very time consuming, and like I said, if you want to do a really good animation to put your best foot forward, you're going to need at least a month, if not 3 months, to basically complete the animation, just for it to be, pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And, I want my stuff to be pretty good. So a lot of times, I'm not going to always be on time with the animations, but in between time with the Q&A, the episode talks, there's always content in between that time period, So write the vision, make it plain, steps, and routine. Number four, this is biblical proof, biblical sound doctrine. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And I say that because you're like, well, what does that mean and all this stuff? What it means is that everybody doesn't need to know what you're cooking up, man. What you think that are supporters and people that are rooting for you, they're not rooting for you. They're just surprised that you keep showing up, So, so when you are focused and disciplined, and when you are getting things done, and when you are progressing, your progression doesn't need to be documented. Every step that you make towards of completing a goal doesn't need to be documented. What needs to be documented is what you have already completed. So once you complete the task, then that's when you're able to document and put it out there. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're completing a preview, is to, put it out there and all those things. Seldom let people know what you're going to do next. Seldom do it. Because a lot of people are not rooting for you. And it's true. A lot of people are going to be against you. Who you think is for you, it's not really for you. And once you start to put your trust on being validated, you're going to be let down once that time comes of when, you know what I'm saying, you're in that position of putting it out there. You know what I'm saying? So my advice for you guys is to work in silence. You know what I'm saying? Work in the darkness, because the Bible says, the Bible says, what's done in the dark will come to light. And, it's not just so much of the evil of the world, but it's also the good, From my personal experience, man, a lot of people aren't about this life. You know what I'm saying? If you are an inspiring whatever, and you're disciplined, you're putting in the work, you're determined, you're focused, man, you're going to have a lot of people that you're going to run across in life. Whether it's just you working a regular job in between times, you going to school, or you're just doing your side hustle like me, or, you're doing it. You're going to meet a lot of people, man. You're going to be a lot of people, man, that's just, that are just all talk, man. No shade to nobody. It's just that once people see the light that's inside of you, man, and the oiled up engine, the well oiled up engine, a lot of people are going to try to pretend around you. You know what I'm saying? And it's not because, it's a level of admiration for the most part. It's because they feel threatened by you. And that just comes a part of the territory. I'm not saying that, it's this, is that. It just comes a part of the territory. For me, I would say, just don't be too caught up on the hype of stuff, of what people are saying, the hype on things, what people are saying about what they're going to do, what people are saying about you. Don't get caught up on that. From my experience, man, just remain humble. Just be that blue collar worker. And just keep, doing the baby steps, man. However you work is however you work. If you're the kind of person that can create animation every single day, hey, by all means do it. If you're the kind of person like me that likes to take their time a little bit, that kind of really enjoys the process of creating, do it that way. Either or, there's always a process, man, and you can't skip the process. There's going to be times to where you're not going to feel like it. There's going to be times to where you're kind of going to be stuck a little bit, but that's part of the process. You know what I'm saying? Don't skip the process, man. The discipline is not so much of how much you can do all at once. The discipline is keep showing up. Even if it's that one particular animation that you're trying to get done, or a semester, you study for a test, you making a video where you're just talking like me, or you're recording yourself and, you're talking. And if that's, somewhat of a challenge, if that's the process you have to go through, just go through it, man. That's the beauty of, being an accomplisher, if that's even a word. Or that's the beauty of being a overcomer, I should say. Because, you're going to look back and be like, man, I really, I really sat there and saw this through. I didn't discourage myself of not doing it, So yeah, man. So, those are my advice about discipline and consistency, man. It's not a flashy, topic to discuss. It's not a flashy, lifestyle, but it produces the most results. So if that's something that you want, you know what I'm saying? This is just my advice to you guys. So with that being said, man, shout out to my new subscribers, man. I got over 50 plus new subscribers. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to do a video of welcoming you guys and giving you guys a little bit of my background for all the new people briefly. And as well as some updates and, just putting you guys up on some game, man. I'm not trying to use this platform to, make it seem like it's one particular way. I try to be real and honest with you guys on just how things truly do work, especially from a self studio like myself. But all in said, until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. See you in the next video, and peace.